Awesome. All right. We're gonna just get into it. So let me pull this up. I started watching this last night.
Yep.
Joseph, and I was like, all right, I gotta sit down. I gotta watch this. Like, I was out of town all weekend, so I didn't have time on Sunday. I didn't get home until super late on Sunday night. But I finally did sit down to watch The Last of Us, and as I was scrolling across the thing, it was like an hour and 20 minutes. And I was like, why?
I saw the hour 20 minutes, and I was like, that's a movie.
Yeah, it is. It's a movie, the first episode. And
I guess we need to tell people, too, that you're the resident scholar and expert when it comes to The Last of Us, and I haven't ever played the video games.
Yeah, and
I know
Justin's
all about the video games.
Justin's probably played it as many times as I have, if not more. I mean, I don't know for certain, but he's quite well versed in the games. Justin,
yeah, very much so. Not the second one. I've only played the second one once, and then used eye bleach.
The only thing you have to really remember about the second one is that the entire beginning of that game is contrived in order to have the plot move forward.
Oh yeah, for sure.
Yeah, they completely change a character's personality in order for that to work, and it's really frustrating. The show, they haven't given me much to go on yet. I was kind of wondering if Neil Druckmann was going to attempt to rewrite some of the characters to fit better into that mold.
Yep.
And it's too soon to tell. And a lot of people are wondering when they're going to start referencing the second game. The biggest problem is, and Justin, maybe you remember, but there's like a good 10-year gap, right, between the first and second game.
I don't think it's quite 10 years. There is a time jump, but I don't think it's 10 years.
Maybe it's like 5, because she's an adult in the second game, right? Ellie is.
She's in maybe around 20. Yeah.
Okay, so maybe not, because I think she's supposed to be 13 in the first game. But yeah, so I don't know what their plan is moving forward with the show as far as how they're gonna handle that. There's reason to believe that they're going to just add in a bunch of extra stuff, because there's no way they're jumping from Last of Us 1 to Last of Us 2 in the first and second season. I don't believe it.
You don't think they're going to do that?
No. I mean, I don't want to get too much. I mean, Joseph, I know you know what happens in the second game because I've already mentioned it a bunch. But
yeah.
I'm trying to keep that part, since we're talking about the show, I'm trying to avoid talking about that too much. But
that way you don't spoil the ending.
Yeah, but and it also it's a question of contracts for certain actors and what that means, and then what do you do if you decide to jump straight into season 2 or to Last of Us Part 2? Where do you go? Because you don't have you're gonna want this to be a few seasons long, especially if it's a hit.
And it had 4.7 million views, the second highest premiere for a TV show for HBO Max.
Oh, that's kind of surprising.
House of the Dragon.
Yeah, I mean,
have they said that the first season covers the entire first game?
Well, see, that's the thing is I thought
that's what they said. I thought it was either read an article by Neil, whatever his name is, the creator,
Neil Druckmann,
which, if I remember correctly, too, when I was doing some research on who created Last of Us, there's a woman that was involved in it, and then apparently between the at some point either during the first game or after the first game and before the second game, left. But yeah, Neil, whatever his name is, I believe someone came out and said that the first season will cover the first game. We'll see if that's true, but
Joseph, do you know how many episodes it's supposed to be?
10.
10?
Yeah, buddy.
Okay.
And they're all going to be an hour and a half long.
Are they really?
No, I'm just kidding.
Oh, I was like, what in the world? I was like, what are they going to cover in this?
No.
So,
it was too long.
I know. All
right, do you want to go through general thoughts? Go ahead. Finish your thoughts.
Yeah. I want to know your general thoughts because you're the one who hasn't played the game.
Okay.
And then
I liked it.
Okay.
I thought it was good. I can understand people too if they said it was really good. The thing that prevents me from saying this is great, amazing, is because, it's kind of like if you've seen The Walking Dead, is this anything really different? And we're only into the first episode, so I'm going to preface this by saying I haven't seen the whole season yet, so I just want to wait and watch and see.
Yeah.
But I kind of have the feeling that I know how the next episode is going to go. They're going to wander around and stumble upon a zombie, and probably meet someone, and then that's the episode, right? Something to that extent. And so for me, it's kind of like it was a good episode. I enjoyed. I did find Sarah and the actress that played Sarah better than the actress that played Ellie, and I found Sarah more interesting as a character than Ellie.
Yeah. So
and it seemed like Bella Ramsey's portrayal in there was a bit of overacting. For me, at least.
Yeah.
But other than that, I really liked it. I thought it was. You could probably take. The other reason why I say that only good, not great, is because I think you could probably take 10, maybe 20 minutes out of there.
Yeah.
And it's a little bit tighter. Like, I understand. I didn't mind the opening.
It's funny you say that.
I
keep going.
I didn't mind it. I enjoy a slow burn. I don't mean like dead slow to where it's boring, but I enjoy exposition and like building to a spot. I definitely didn't mind that. What was it, like 20 or 30 minutes into the episode before we finally got to the actual zombie apocalypse? I didn't mind that, actually. I thought that was, I thought it was really good. I enjoyed, trying to, I guess their style, it focuses at first on Sarah, so it makes you think she's going to be tries to make you think she's going to be the main character or a main character.
Yeah, that's a game. That concept is from the game. Let me say that.
100%.
Yeah.
But that ends up. If you haven't seen Last of Us episode 1, we've already said we're reviewing it. Spoiler warning. I'm about to spoil some things.
I've got this.
But yeah, obviously,
I've got the screen of all the old people from the beginning on here. So let me move this up so people have some sort of at least concept of what you're talking about.
But I thought
find a good picture of.
Obviously she ends up not being the main character. She ends up dying, and so I thought that was a good idea. And I enjoyed Pedro's performance. There wasn't, I thought he did a good job acting. I thought it was good. Thought it was really good, actually.
Okay, so a couple things.
I would probably give it like a B+.
Okay.
For me. If I was, forced to.
Despite what some people, what some people might think is coming, like I didn't hate it, but I also didn't really care for it. Like first episode in particular, I'm indifferent to. Like I'd probably give it like a C+. If I it's pretty in that like 5.5 range for me, like somewhere kind of middle of the road. I like Pedro Pascal works for the most part. I think that, and again, this is coming from someone who's played the first game. I think there's something to being, again, we talk about this all the time, like faithful to the source material, especially because the guy that wrote the show wrote the game.
Right.
Like he wrote it. So you would think that you would try to be faithful to that. Now, I have my personal theories as to why he's changing some things, and it has more to do with the sequel to the first game than anything, that maybe he might be trying to rewrite the personalities of characters. I don't know. It's a very weird place for me to be in, because I think that and we'll get into it a little bit, but there's some choices that he made as far as stuff that they changed that I'm like, I don't know why you changed this, because your original thought and how this part plays out makes a lot more sense than what you're doing in the show. But we'll get there. Now, the interesting thing, Joseph, is that first 20 minutes is borderline all new. You do in the beginning of the game,
really?
you play as Sarah, but the thing is that you wake up as her as everything is starting to go crazy. So it's like something wakes her up and you wander around the house, you see a news report on the TV, you see an explosion in the city, and you go downstairs, and then you kind of get introduced to Joel in that moment, and you play as Sarah up until the car crash, which is actually... So I think one of the most accurate things in the first episode is that whole like chaotic scene. So as soon as they get in the truck to leave, I thought that was excellent. I don't have any sort of like issue with that specific part. I think it's all, for the most part, like the pacing and the way that they play it out in the show is, I think, probably as accurate as you're going to get as far as like a live action adaptation is concerned. I think her death works. I think that they play that well. I think at the very least everyone involved knew that they needed to nail that moment, because without nailing that moment, no one is really going to be there for it. And I'm also impressed that they actually left it in, because that's very intense. So
there's a comment in the troll room that I agree with from Elk 3 that says Pager's acting wasn't fatherly with Sarah. It's fine. It's a fine line, but Troy Baker, who I'm assuming is the actor that plays Joel in the video game, played it really well, being both masculine and fatherly, yet being a friend to his daughter that added to loss. So here's the thing with the opening scene, not the where they're talking at the desk, but when you start with Sarah and everything, I wasn't sure. Are they trying to portray her as she's the one that takes care of everything because he can't really take care of himself? He's kind of thick and she's smart. She's going to fix his watch and cook breakfast and take care of the house. And she's kind of the, she's the 14-year-old, 15 or 6, however old she is supposed to be in the show, leader of the home, so to say.
Yeah.
Even though, and he's just the one that provides the money. Or if it was just like, oh, hey, it's his birthday, and she's just trying to take care of everything on that day.
It's more
you know what I mean?
It's more that. And it's interesting you got that impression, because in the games, in the first game, we'll just pretend as if part 2 doesn't really exist. Okay. But in that game, Joel is very capable. There shouldn't be no doubt in anyone's mind that he is a very capable person who can get anything that he needs to done, and he's willing to go to some very, very scary places in order to accomplish what he thinks is the right thing to do.
So is it one of those things he's willing to go to a dark place not because he wants to, but because he feels like he has to protect those around him?
It's a bit of both.
Like as if like he doesn't want to be dark, so he's actively going against his will, and so he is being dark in order to accomplish. Well, you're saying it's both. Like he kind of wants to be dark, but he doesn't want to be.
He's kind of a bad dude. Like not. Yeah, okay. It's complicated, and that's why everyone loves the first game.
Just as far as his dark side in the game, though, is they never really tell you what he's done.
Yeah,
they never really say these are the things. He just hints at the things that he's had to do in his past to survive. But he's also made like kind of comments in the game itself to doing things that weren't necessarily just for survival, but because he wanted them or needed them.
Right.
And he knows how to get through a lot of things. And this is obviously by the time of the apocalypse at the end, like in the game, but he knows things that are going to happen based on things that he's done to other people.
Okay. Yeah. And does have any of these bad things happened when he was in the military? Because I saw at least in the...
Bro, yeah. Can we talk about that for a second? Because there's a couple things at the very beginning military. I want to tell you. Yeah. So okay. You know how, Joseph? You know how we talk a lot about the show don't tell aspect.
Yes.
Of things. I think this show is in a lot of ways is a prime example of how you don't do show, or how you don't do show, where it's like they very much like he's driving away in the truck and the camera pans down to the bumper sticker on the back of his truck. It is like veteran. And you're like, okay, guys, like you could have done this much more subtly. Like we don't need to make it that like, hey, he was a veteran, that now we've established that he knows how to take care of himself. And it's like, you don't need that. It's an unnecessary addition to something, because by the time 20 years has passed, we can assume because he's alive, he's learned how to survive. And then you show us through actions, which I'm going to say the game does much better, that he's willing to hurt people and he's willing to do what needs to be done, because there is in this show a very much like us versus them mentality. And
you think by the end of the, are you saying that should have been done prior to
it should have been
apocalypse happening?
No, it should have been. Well, okay, there's a couple things. One, they do, and I think again it's more powerful in the game because this, and it's tough without kind of having the visual, but essentially what happens is like Sarah goes downstairs in the game. Joel isn't there and she's expecting him to be there. So they've reworked a lot of that from the show, where like he wanders out because Tommy's like in jail, and it was like, what are we doing? Why are you making up all of these reasons for him to now have to leave the house? Which is why I'm saying like they had a great opening and they're just redoing it in a way that's like, why do you need to just kind of, oh, well, Tommy got into a fight in a bar and now Joel has to go get him out and he's going to leave Sarah there by herself. Where in the game, what is sort of hinted at is that Joel went outside, something was going on, like he heard something, was aware that there was something going on outside. He comes back into the house with the understanding that like there's something wrong with their neighbor. Their neighbor comes like crashing through their window and Joel shoots him in the head, and Sarah's like, you just killed that guy. So it's like you like very quickly you establish like who Joel is, what he's willing to do.
Yeah.
And in this, they're just, the reason that I'm not really a big fan of this like opening stuff is that it's just, they're kind of meandering around. They're like, hey, did you know that Sarah went to school? And it's like, dude, we don't, she's 13. We can figure it out. Like,
I kind of like that aspect of it.
But it doesn't,
I can understand like you saying, again, I don't think it's a bad route to do exactly what the game did, right? Based off the source material. I think that's immediately getting into it. Big impact right out the gate, right?
Yeah.
Rather than, you kind of, dude, all right, I'm going to back up just so we can talk about those 3 or 2 old guys talking or whatever.
Oh, yeah, because we got to talk about the quote-unquote virus. God.
Dude.
It's not a virus. It's a fungal infection. It's not a virus. Dude, they confuse.
They don't fungal infection.
They do, but they also call it a virus. And it's they're not a virus and a fungal infection. Like what this is, they're different. And
did they change it for the show, or were they just not sure yet?
I think it's just poorly written, honestly. Because they kind of know it's mostly the same. Like they hint at like the and I'm pretty sure this is accurate to the game, but I it's in a note somewhere. But the weather, they believe that because the weather has warmed, it is now possible for this cordyceps to live inside of humans. And that's what causes the outbreak.
Yeah, because the guy was like, if it heats up by 1 or 2 degrees,
right?
It's always 1 or 2 degrees. If you notice that.
Yes. Now, what's interesting about that too, and this is why in scenarios like this, it's really better to just not give a backstory to your outbreak, is because it's really easy to start going like, okay, well, if we know that it's because of weather, then if you just get somewhere cold enough, you're fine.
Right.
If it can live in like hotter climates, just go somewhere cold.
That's why it can't survive. A lot of people got mad that The Walking Dead never explained the origin of the outbreak and everything. And I'm like, no, I kind of like that aspect because I think having that mystery there is important.
Yeah, all you need to know, and I think it was cool too that they took something from that is real, that actually does happen in insects, and they're like, hey, what if that happened in humans? And they just left it at that, and then it's like you explain little things like how long infection takes, you add to a little bit of that, but you don't go into the minutia of like how this outbreak works, because the second you're like, oh, well, heat, and it's like, well, there are places that are still very cold in the world, and unless you're explaining to me that those places are all now that, you've got to give me like some really interesting world building in that aspect, and I don't think they were prepared for that, and I think they were hoping people weren't going to really be paying attention, because I kind of
rolled my eyes at the climate change part. I was like, oh, of course, of course it is.
So,
but I was like, whatever.
Sci-fi.
Okay, let's. Yeah, I enjoyed everything leading up to that point in the beginning.
Right,
and then I was like, frick, it's HBO, whatever.
But that's what I was thinking too, because it was like, okay, they said that, and then he was like, well, virus. They were talking about like a virus, and then it was like, but this is fungus. Like this is an actual. This isn't the same thing as a virus. And
because. Go ahead.
Excuse me. So I was like, okay, well, what are they going for? Like, are you changing what it is? Are we even dealing with like a fungal thing? Like because he talks about the cordyceps, and it is, but they just did this weird thing at the beginning where they were kind of unsure of like, it's like they're calling it a virus, but it's like, no, that's not what it is. It's like an actual infection. So
right. Tyler in the troll room says the point wasn't just weather; it was the ability of the fungus to actually evolve to adapt to warmer hosts. Once it adapts, weather doesn't really matter. At least that's what it seemed.
That's fair.
That's a good point.
Yeah, but at the same time, if it's like, I don't know, it just like, this would probably require a little bit more like research into the way that kind of stuff works. But it's like, would body temperature changes kill it off then? Still, like if you just lived up somewhere that the body temperature of those that are infected starts going down, does it just kill them off at that point?
Or you just drop someone into an ice bath, and leave them in there for a little while till their body drops for a little bit,
until you get hypothermia.
So then
pop them back out and kill it.
And the thing that works about the game pretty well, and I actually might be able to pull it up.
I definitely don't think that would have been a bad entrance into the show to start with Sarah, but at the same time I understand, having those three guys. I think that's pivotal, so that because I don't know anything, I understand. Oh, hey, this isn't just even though they call it a virus, I didn't realize that. I heard fungus, and I was just zoned in on that. And that it evolves, and it's basically a parasite that gets a host and uses your body, right?
Yeah.
Essentially.
Yeah.
And then getting to the opening of, hey, you wait with Sarah, and then within the first 5 or 10 minutes,
oh dude,
it's happening, you're getting right into it. I definitely understand that. At the same time, I don't mind this route either, to where you have a slow build up and you kind of get to see, who Sarah is more. You get to see Pedro, and you kind of get to relax in the world and see it, get some world building going on and have some time to be there with the characters before it's just jumping right into it. Because if I remember correctly, I think The Walking Dead jumps right into it.
So,
and again, that's not me saying that either one's the better way. I just think they both work. For me.
I think one is significantly better than the other. Yeah. I think it is. I think I was really shocked that they decided to take 20 minutes to do all of that, because it's in the game, like, you have this quiet moment, and here's the other thing is, like, Joseph, it worked for people in 2013,
right?
Everyone was very much praising the opening of that game, so it's one of those things that's like that's all you need from that, especially because she's gone at that point. Like, you deal with that situation and you're moving on to the rest of the game. It's a great intro, and it's insane to me. It's insane to me that they decided to go the route of, we're going to slow burn this, then we're going to push you into this kind of like crazy thing where the ending is essentially Sarah dying. When you open it, right, it's quiet. You can establish a lot of things from her in the house pretty quickly.
Right.
Go into establishing Joel and what he's willing to do to protect his daughter. Great. You have some more of that as they're leaving the house. I think that, it's like you have the moment where they're passing by that family and he's like, leave them, someone else will take care of it, straight from the game. Except they added a baby, and I'm kind of like, all right, I guess that's fine either way. Like, I don't care. And all the stuff in the town is mostly the same. There's a couple things that are different, but for the most part, I don't have a problem with it. And then that incident happens. He's over her dead body, like screaming, and it's like, boom, you have the title, Last of Us, and then you move on to the next thing, and it flows so well. And I'm not into this idea that they're just like, well, we're going to try to get you to like her more, but it's all they did was like, well, she goes to school and then she goes and cooks cookies with her neighbor.
Well, like, I mean, for one, I think, when it comes to a 12, 13, 14, 15-year-old kid, if you establish that father-daughter relationship pretty fast, then, their impact, even without that, the impact of seeing a young kid die like that's going to be there, regardless of if you do it in 20 minutes or 5 minutes, right?
Exactly.
But I think having that, for me, not knowing the game, having that 20 minutes was nice. And again, it happens in 5 minutes. I would still like it. I didn't have a problem with them going down that route to where, okay, she's going to go get her father. We're going to go get his watch fixed with his money, right? It's kind of a funny scene between both of them. And it's something that has payback later on, like a memento of her. And then, you have her in school. What was the school scene? Because I watched it on Sunday. I wish I wanted to watch it before we began this.
She's literally in class. Because I thought they were trying to go somewhere with it. But she's sitting in class. She looks over. The girl near her has like some sort of bracelet on that's shining. She leaves. She gets on a bus and she goes to get the watch fixed. That's it. And it's like, so even with like what you're saying, it was just like, why are you guys?
Tyler said in the troll room that the school scene had one of the school students doing a tick.
Oh, that's okay. Well,
that's what I thought. So there was a bit there, and
we should talk about the
bracelet girl had
a tick,
weird tick, kind of foreshadowing, and then you get to the scene of downtown where she's trying to get that watch fixed, and that's when everything kind of crap starts hitting the fan.
Yeah, so it's kind of all right. Let me say this too. They changed a couple things, and that's why I pulled up this image of the quote unquote infection
for COVID.
Yeah. So in the game, it takes 1 to 2 days. Infection does. It's a much slower process, and so I don't really want to sit and like argue the benefit / not of changing that. But
I wonder why they changed that. What their thought process was.
Here's the thing that's weird, right? If
that
that's
seems
the
like
case,
an insignificant thing.
Yeah, if that's the case, if the infection is a lot faster, it kind of still ruins the beginning, that opening scene. Because why was it taking everyone forever at that point? If they know infection happens. Now, they're saying it's like bites or whatever, but I'm not exactly sure what the difference is between... Because they haven't established this yet, but spores can also get into you can essentially inhale spores and get infected that way.
Oh, that's what I was going to ask you. I didn't know. I was like, is it kind of like a virus and it's a fungus?
It's physical. It's completely it's like a physical thing that infects you. Like it's not the same thing as like when you get a flu, right?
And you can see
it's another
you can see the spores.
Parasite.
Yeah. You know that they're coming, and they wear gas masks and like
an amoeba.
You can put it's like a dust in the air.
It's dust. Yeah,
okay.
you can see it.
And you put a gas mask on, and whatever the gas mask you have is strong enough to not get it.
Dang, man. Okay, because I wasn't exactly clear at the end of the episode. I was like, okay, do you contract this only by like biting or scratching, or can you get this in the air? Because it seems to imply you could get it in the air, and so okay, that makes a bit more sense.
So on that picture that you've got shown right now with the neck, face, and head, my only thought is maybe you do get it quicker in that area only because you're more likely to die. And I wonder if they're trying to connect, like in the show, like dying by one of these things will activate it and have it spread quicker.
Yeah.
Whereas your body is, if you're still alive through it, your body is fighting back.
Mm-hmm. Can you still spread it if you're asymptomatic?
You don't. There is no asymptomatic.
Well, there's one.
Right, but that's, I didn't know if they had gotten into that or not.
Yeah, it's revealed basically. So the end of the episode, Justin, is the part where the three of them they go through that, like in the game, you remember they like go through that cargo thing, and then Joel gets hit by one of the Fedra guys, and then that's when they find out that Ellie has the bite.
They made it all the way to that point in the first episode.
Yeah, an hour and 20 minutes.
That's like 3 to 4 hours into the
game. Which is weird. Yeah. So a couple of things that are probably going to happen is that the Left Behind DLC is probably going to be like a full episode.
It'll be like a flashback.
Yeah. They're diving deeper into Bill and his partner more than likely, because
I'd be okay with that, because Nick Offerman's Bill. He's typically a really good actor, so
I'm curious to see what they're going to do there. And I know I'm being very particular about this. I don't hate it. It's like I said, it's not something that this is not Blood Origin. This isn't Rings of Power. This isn't any of that level of anything. It's just very frustrating that they just have made decisions that were completely unnecessary. Like it doesn't really, so far they haven't done anything that's like, wow, that really adds to, like, complements the game in a really good way. It's all just sort of like, all right, like why are, it's just like changes for the sake of changes. And I don't know.
I did enjoy once everything started happening and they get in the truck and they're just going, and you get that, right before that when the neighbor comes out and Joel smacks her in the face with the wrench. I think you kind of see there, okay, that first instance, I'm willing to do whatever I need to do to protect those I love, right?
Yeah. It's Texas, though. They would all have firearms.
Yeah.
Like, it's just, I mean, I know it's a nitpick, but it's one of those things that's like, guys.
Especially if he's a veteran, too.
Yeah. Texas exists. Let's
just acknowledge it.
It's
weird,
and then
when he drives past the family with the baby, I thought that was a good scene. Like, hey,
sure.
They weren't infected or anything like that, but it's showing, hey, we have a kid too. We can't risk it. We're going.
Yeah. I'm gonna address this because Jenna mentioned it in the chat, but I'm pretty sure it's heavily implied in the game that Bill is gay. Jenna.
100%.
Yeah.
Was it when he was in the shower with a man in the game, or
no? He has a partner. There,
right.
It's the way that he talks about it. It's subtle, right? It's what you want out of stuff like that when you're not given the backstory. In particular, like you meet Bill, you don't spend a whole lot of time with him. I think it's maybe an hour in the game, maybe a little bit longer than that, and it's just some of the things that he says about that sort of stuff that it heavily implies that.
Yeah, and it was an implication that was actually it was good, because it could have been he was gay, or it could have just been you develop a relationship with the one person that you're around. Because that's who you rely on a regular. So like, but it really kind of like took it to another level if you went around and actually looked for all of the like notes and different things in the game, and then you found out more, which is one of the things that I think they're going to have a hard time with in the show that the game did so good, is the show tell thing.
Yeah.
You could find out more in the game by spending more time looking for things, but you didn't have to do any of that to enjoy the game.
Did you remember the name of the guy from the notes in when you're in the sewer, Justin? Do you remember what I'm talking about? It's like, it's kind of like for a long time, that was what people were saying. That's how you do. I'm replaying through it right now, and I was like, oh yay, I've gotten far enough in it to be able to talk confidently about the first episode.
Yep.
But I'm semi close to that.
I can't remember the name, but that part of the game is awesome. Just because they are showing you a lot that's going on that you weren't a part of, by just giving you like little pieces as you continue through the story, and it just made a great way to do the exposition.
Yeah, and I'm wondering if they're going to. I mean, if it's 10 episodes, they could just do a whole episode about that, but I don't know if I would like that. It's weird. And this is where I'm at with it, and then we can keep kind of going on, just because I'm sure there's a lot to talk about, but the. Shoot, I just lost my train of thought. I'm sorry, guys.
No, you're fine.
I had something there, but anyway.
Let me just jump in, because you guys are blowing my mind that it's 10 episodes.
Yeah.
They're supposed to cover the first season. So we've been told. You've already talked about all the filler that they've added to the episode, right?
There's quite a bit. I mean, it's what it is.
But they're at the end of the first episode, and they're already out of Boston. That's where they are in the game.
No.
TV show.
They're still in Boston.
Well, but if they're not, though, if Ellie just told him and
Tess.
Tess, that's right.
Yeah,
I want to say Teresa. So told Tess that she is she's infected but doesn't actually have anything.
Yeah. So they're headed towards the Capitol building.
They are out of the Boston area. Right. So that means
they're outside of the city, so that's fair.
Right, like the Fedra area. So did they touch on like the guy they had to go like get their weapons back from?
They changed that.
And then meet with Marlene and all of it. Did all of that happen?
Yes, but again, they decided to change. Oh man, and this will be an interesting thing to kind of discuss, because Joseph doesn't. They completely change Joel and Tess's motivation for why they need Marlene. So, Joseph, do you remember what it is in the show? Like they're the kind of driving force?
I believe the driving force, and the troll room can help me out remember, but I believe the driving force was because they needed a battery for their truck. And so I think the motivation was to get the battery and or to get a truck that's already fully stacked and ready to go.
Yes, I know. Hang on, Justin and Joseph. Why do they need the truck?
So they can go find Tommy.
Yes, and implying that Joel doesn't know where Tommy is.
Right.
Okay.
He thinks. No. Well, they believe like his last known location was Tower 7. I think about okay. Tower 7, whatever tower, but that was. His last known location, that's where Joel was heading to, was Tower 7 or wanted to head to Tower 7 to find Tommy.
Now, let me ask you one more question. What is Joel's occupation in his new life?
He burns dead people or infected people that have been killed. And he's also a smuggler.
Okay, so you did pick up on the smuggler thing.
Okay, all right. They at least got one thing from the game.
Here's the thing, though. He's like smuggling like Oxy in the show.
Hydrocodone.
Dude. And okay, so
I died. I was like, y'all are going to show that with. I'm just kidding.
So let me explain who he is in the game.
Of course, he's smuggling pain pills.
So the reason that, and again, this is why these weird changes are completely unnecessary, and why them not really focusing in on him being a smuggler, it messes with it for me, is because like you're like, okay, so he's got drugs, he seems to be like doing these little things for anyone, but like they're gun runners in the game,
right?
Like they're not just, oh, he smuggles some drugs, he does this thing. Like this is a dude who is very dangerous, and they established that like both he and Tess are willing to do whatever it takes to get their product.
Yeah, I don't think that in the first episode they establish how well he is at fighting and shooting and stuff like that.
No, I don't even know if he shoots anybody in the first episode.
But from what you've told me, he's gonna be established as being great at that because he was in the military.
Right.
Whereas in the game, he is good at that because he's lived a life of smuggling and killing people and hurting people and being a bad person in order to survive.
Yeah.
So
that's a key to his character.
So here's the other thing about like the whole difference in the motivation, right? And plus, I'm pretty sure, and Justin, you can correct me if I'm wrong, but I think he knows where Tommy is.
They know where Tommy is because at one point
Tess was like working with him, right?
He knows that, and I don't know if this is going to spoil anything from the show. I'm going to try to be careful, but he knows that Tommy was a member of the rebel group,
right?
And that had a falling out with the leader of the rebels and left. And he knew he went west and went to a specific city.
Yeah, it's like
west.
So they've changed all of that.
Well, no, I think because they go to a map, and the tracing of it is from Boston, past Chicago, I want to say. So technically that is west. And I believe he's going to Tower 7 specifically.
Right, but the thing about that is that like he has to find out all that information. Like it's not a thing, right? And so he has no motivation to actually go see Tommy before he meets Ellie.
Him and Tommy had a falling out, and he has no desire to ever see him again.
Right. So it's
like game he doesn't, whereas in the show he wants to go see him.
Correct. In the game, him and Tommy had a falling out. They had it's kind of led that Tommy didn't like the life Joel was living.
Yeah, Tyler Control Room said it's basically the same in the show, except the radio guy tells him he was last heard at a specific tower, which I believe was Tower 7, and that it's and Joel in the show was a bit distraught, if that's the right word, that it's been 3 weeks since he's heard from Tommy.
Yeah,
and so he'll respond within a day or so.
Whoops. So you can kind of understand like they're doing some stuff with him that I'm kind of like I don't.
I just don't get it.
Well, I understand where you're coming from when it says it's like not sticking to the source material. I get that part. For me, not knowing the source material, it works within the show. It's like nothing narrative-wise, script-wise is like, well, that's stupid. It's again.
Well, I'm not saying it's
just a change.
No one's saying it's not stupid. It's just unnecessary, and I think it leads to a weaker motivation. So. He and Tess in the game, they lose guns, and the Fireflies are the ones that end up getting the guns that were promised to Tess. Like she paid for them, and she's supposed to be getting them delivered. And this guy, the guy that Troy Baker, who played, he's in it. The scene, Joseph, where Tess is sitting in that thing and she's gotten like beaten up and the guy's sitting across from her. So that's Troy Baker, who played Joel in the game. He voiced Joel. So in the game, his character stole or took the guns, sold them to the Fireflies, and screwed over Tess. And so they go hunt him down, and Tess kills him in cold blood, basically. For double crossing them. And so then that's when you meet up with Marlene, and Marlene, instead of and you'll have to remind me, because to be honest, I can't quite remember her reasoning for why Joel and Tess care at all about to take Ellie west. But in the game, are you saying in the show or in the game?
In the show.
In the game, it's because she's promising to give them the guns once they deliver Ellie to where they need her to go.
Right.
So it's like...
That's essentially what it is in the show, that they'll give them a fully loaded truck with, I believe, weapons too, but at least a fully loaded truck with gas, fuel, and all that stuff if they, drop Ellie off.
Which is
is Marlene injured in the show?
Yeah, they did. Yes. They stuck with that, but they do all this weird stuff, man. Where they have a big fight, but Tess and Joel show up and everybody's already dead. And so they make some like weird decisions about how like the flow of exciting scenes work in the first episode. And I don't know, I guess I don't care either way, but it's this weird stuff that's like the reason that Marlene ultimately picks Tess and Joel is because they're smugglers. And they're very, very, very good at what they do. And like as far as I can tell, that's not very well established in the show. It's just kind of like, okay, like he does that, but then like he's also doing odd jobs to make money, and they need this thing, and we'll give you a truck to get you to where you need to go. But like he's already going to be kind of like heading that way anyway. And so I'm like, why change that stuff? Like there's not a purpose in it. And again, they
seems minuscule.
Yeah,
as far as changing that specific aspect.
Yeah, and we can talk about that last scene, because I don't necessarily think it's. Was there, Joseph, before we get to this last scene, was there anything else you wanted to mention?
No, I think it establishes his relationship with Tess, and that they've been together at least for some time since everything. And you also get the establishment of Fedra that they'll kill anyone, man, woman, or child if they're infected, obviously.
And that's just fine. Like establishing like certain things about organizations in the world.
Yeah, I thought the world building was really well done. I thought it was well done. I mean,
I think it's a little too blunt.
It seemed a bit drastic. Like, I don't understand how, okay, you get a virus that spreads, but then apparently that makes a skyscraper fall, and 20 years later, I guess from 2003, I don't know. Everything seemed a bit drastic, but I mean, it's a drama show, so it makes sense. But because you get that right at the end, you get that scene of there's a thunderstorm going on, and you have that skyscraper that tipped over.
Yeah,
and it's like, man, guys, it's like this fungus thing just spread. I mean, what caused that? I don't know. Just how my mind works is just, it's like, that's odd.
Yeah,
skyscrapers are, I don't know. Weird nitpick,
okay. Well, you could say that, but also
I enjoyed the visual wise. I'm like, that's cool.
Yeah,
I don't know why.
Yeah.
Oh, it is.
Yeah. They're going up into that tower, like, because that's very much one of those moments where it's like, as someone who's played the games, you're like, oh, I know exactly what's about to happen. Like it's a almost like shot for shot. Like there are certain moments in the show where you can tell they were like, hey, remember this? Like it's kind of what they're going for, It's pretty typical in these like live action, like from the game to live action adaptations.
There wasn't really anything that I thought wasn't meaningless or was overtly, overtly bad or anything like that. I thought it was a really good episode. For me, it just comes from watching The Walking Dead for as long as we did, and the other stuff I've watched is kind of like, I've already seen it. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
I'm watching something I've already seen before.
I can definitely understand that, because this was, Last of Us came out in 2013, I think.
Yeah.
And so it was not exactly, like the Walking Dead was on, and a lot of that zombie stuff was happening, but this was kind of one of those things, and I get the Walking Dead comparisons. I think it's one of those things that's like, yeah, whenever you have a show about zombies, there's going to be that like human element to it, but it's the relationship between Joel and Ellie in that game that drives a lot of it. There's a few other things. There's a certain character in particular that'll show up towards the end of the season that I'm really curious how that's gonna go.
Yeah.
And I won't spoil anything, because I don't want Joseph to get. I don't want to get too far ahead. Stuff about like like tiny things, it's fine. I don't think it's going to make that much of a difference. But as far as like big beats, I'm going to try to stay away from a lot of that.
Yeah. No, and I wasn't the biggest fan of The Walking Dead, and so I enjoyed, from what I remember of the opening episode of The Walking Dead, I enjoyed this opening. This episode one of The Walking Dead. This is better.
Okay.
Ooh, I don't know that.
Oh,
that first episode of The Walking Dead was pretty good.
Joseph, so one quick thing. It's very possible for that building fell over, because you got to remember that planes were literally falling out of the sky.
Oh, that's right. Yeah.
So it's very possible. It's possible.
Go ahead.
That's
yeah,
it.
Yeah,
it's
no,
possible.
that makes sense. I get that. Yeah, no, I'm stupid. That was just, I was probably
No,
too
you're good,
overthinking it. All The Walking Dead was okay. I won't say the first episode, but I'll just say this: All The Walking Dead freaking was there are bad people everywhere. There are zombies, and you really at the end just want all the zombies to eat everyone. Because the real monsters are actual people.
Yeah,
the actual people. That's why I was kind of hoping that I hope that this show will go into. I don't necessarily mind going into like the threat from humans and stuff like that, but I really just hope it doesn't. It doesn't go into the niche of that humans are
they were the bad guys all along. Yeah,
they're the actual monsters, not the zombies. And because you already got, because here's the thing, that's a trope, right?
Yeah.
Then you already have, which it's fine, but you already have the trope of the key to everything, right? Nothing wrong. Ellie's the key to everything, woman. But now you have Ellie. You have at least how they're presenting it.
Yeah, I don't know, you're fine. It's just it's so funny like listening to you talk about some of this stuff. And again, they might change things at this point.
They could totally just change everything.
And I think they're gonna and I won't we won't talk about it, Joseph, until we get to the last episode of the show, but there's a really good possibility that like some of the motivations of things that happen at the end, they might change, because Neil Druckmann absolutely can't stand the fact that a lot of people defend certain actions that take place at the end of the thing. And so there's some stuff that they might do to potentially definitively let you know one way or another what's going on, which I think, for one, is a big mistake. And we'll get there. Oh God, it's so hard not talking about it. But
I don't
really
necessarily
is,
mind. I'm just saying, like, okay, you have Ellie, you have Siri, and we keep going on some other shows too, where you have the key. She's the key to everything going on right now.
Let's just
being
say
played out a lot, and I don't.
Yeah.
They're setting up like, because she tested negative at the end, right?
Positive,
showing that she has the fungus or whatnot,
right?
That she's going to be able to potentially have the cure is what I was gathering.
Let's just say that the Last of Us, when it came out, subverted some things that typically might not have happened in most storytelling. This was because this came out long before Rian Johnson was subverting everyone's expectations in wrong ways, and there were certain things that a lot of people considered very smart storytelling, and I still think it is. I think the story for that game still holds up very, 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 very well. My worry is that they're gonna go down your route more than potentially what originally happened. So it's complicated. We'll talk about it when we get there, but it's.
Yeah. I think it's off to a great start. The first episode, I think I enjoyed Joel. I didn't think that Ellie, the actress Bella Ramsey, was bad or anything. There were tendencies to where I thought it was overacting some, and a bit too much. But overall, I liked her performance. I thought Sarah's performance was better. I was like, man, I wish they would have just kept her and killed off Ellie, because I thought that actress did a better job. Pedro nailed it. I think, especially that ending scene where he fights that soldier and ends up, he has that traumatic flashback, that PTSD from when his daughter died, and that motivates him to kill that soldier who you already get to see is kind of a bit scummy, would be a good word to put. And so he's willing to do whatever he needs to do to save his back, right, too. and just kind of the reality of the world right then, how harsh it is, how hard it is.
Yeah, and that's a change.
Tess's character was all right. I didn't like. I was indifferent with Tess. I was, I thought I enjoyed what's her name, Melanie, the leader of the rebels.
What's her name? It's Marlene.
Marlene.
Yeah.
Marlene. I enjoyed her, even though I thought it was a bit funny how even though Ellie's extremely important. Well, I guess it makes sense that even though Ellie's extremely important, Marlene's only hope to get Ellie where she needs to be is Joel, just because he happens to arrive at the right time.
Yeah, and that's the again. That's why I don't think that they should have changed the fact that Joel and Tess had a really strong motivation to do that, a personal motivation, like because they don't really care about Ellie, like, and I'm not sure that they kind of get into that a little bit, but it takes time for them to sort of develop the relationships.
In the game, she is just cargo for half the game.
Pretty much, yeah. He doesn't care about her.
In the show, that's what, at least in the first episode, that's all she is to him, and to Tess, as to be able to get the truck to go get Tommy. But it was just, I don't know if you would think script wise, okay, they were going after Robert or whatever his name was, Robbie, for the battery, and then they just happened to run into Marlene.
Right. It's more contrived than talking about, because I get that, because so cars in so like I don't even know, gosh, I know I'm talking about the game a lot, but like until the second game came out, like it's pretty well established that like cars just like aren't a thing.
Yeah, they
for the most part
all failed basically because no one really knew how to fix them.
Yeah, gas is non-existent. Batteries die off after 10 years or so.
The only people that have vehicles is Fedra.
And then like, they also, there's a faction in the second game that somehow is like functioning like the world never changed.
Yeah,
and it's never really explained for that I can remember. But yeah, I just like I'll probably stick pretty hardcore by the fact that they really should have used the first episode to establish what Tess, because this is what it makes a lot of sense, what Tess and Joel were willing to do for their cargo, right?
Yep.
And then you introduce this thing where it's like, well, the Fireflies are kind of this big organization. They can't really do a whole lot about that, but they're given this opportunity to potentially, get the stuff back. And so now you have more cargo and what they're willing to do to get that to where it's going. Like it all plays out really well. And in this, it's sort of like, I get the you can change the motivation where he's trying to get to Tommy and find him, but it's kind of like,
and he needs the truck in order to do so.
Yeah. And then like, dude, like vehicles in this are not like great transportation. And so I guess they're going to change that too. Like long distance transportation. Yeah. Cause like going through cities, well, you'll see, but like unless they change that, but in the game, at least there are very well established moments where going through a city with a vehicle is a lot more dangerous than just being on foot.
Yep,
yeah, that's what I was going to say. You would think in that
for sure.
In that world that it would. The main thing I found, I would probably say the primary thing I found weird was that random child walking to the gates in Boston. I understand they did it to show, oh hey, this is a protected facility or whatnot.
Yeah.
But it just seemed odd that a random child would just happen to be able to be walking and make it through. You know what I mean? I guess what there would be zombies everywhere, I'm assuming, or, like, how did that happen essentially? I can't remember in the show if they, really give any kind of detailed answer. It's just the child walking up to the. It's
not a thing. It's made up for the show. Okay. And I understand they wanted to kind of do that, like you were saying, to show the kind of cruelty of the world. And I don't really have a problem with that. But then again, like watching Joel like strangle a bunch of guys, shoot a bunch of guys, and like it's specifically for a very like selfish reason. I felt
like that scene could have been better.
Oh,
like
yeah.
you could have had like, okay, the child's with its mom or dad getting there, and then you see, maybe the parent and the child both test negative, and you can kill them both off, or one, the parent test, is fine, good to go, but then the child tests negative or something.
Yeah.
It just seemed odd. Random child just happens to be able to walk there just in order to show the cruelty of the world. Like, I think it seemed very contrived to me. I think you could still show that just in a way that made more sense. Outside of really that and the few other things I said, I thought it was a really good episode. Like I said, B plus. I mean, yeah, I'm interested in seeing the second episode again. It's and seeing where the season goes from here. I think I'm cautiously optimistic because, as with the House of the Dragon, this any episode it could go off a cliff.
Yeah, true. I mean? I don't think I'd put it on the same level as that. I mean, I think that directing wise, it's pretty solid. I mean, this is, like I said, it's not.
Oh, it's not as good as House of Dragon.
It's not
now,
terrible. It's just.
I thought it was really good, man. I think they did a good job, like nailing it. It's funny because I've been seeing people say on Twitter and elsewhere, like, finally and maybe you can enlighten me and show me where I may not be understanding clearly, but finally there's a TV show that's faithful and does a fantastic job of being a video game adaptation. I'm like, well, what about Arcane? That was a video game adaptation,
and it's still the best one, I think. Yeah.
I have a question about that, right? So up to this point, for the most part, I haven't seen Arcane, but up to this point, video game adaptations have been
trash,
but they've been of video games that don't usually tell stories.
Mm-hmm.
Mortal Kombat, okay, whatever. Other ones. I'm sure there have been some that were stories, but you get my point. We literally already saw this in a cinematic experience by playing the game in 2013.
Right. And
like, you've seen everything visually that you need to see to be able to tell this story. So we are now coming up to it again, and it is 10 years later that we're getting this in a video format with live action people. It is too soon from when that game came out to the 6 different iterations that they put out of it since then.
Yeah.
To put it into media and make massive changes and not expect some people to go, wait a second, I've seen this and this is not what I saw.
Yeah, it doesn't, and this has kind of been the argument since they kind of talked about potentially turning this into some sort of like movie or TV show, that it really is like, why? And honestly, Joseph, because you had mentioned, I think you had said this last week, it's like, I am very willing to just be like, this just isn't for me. Like, this was not made for me.
Right.
This was not really made with fans in mind. This is to do, like, really, make a product for people who have never even like heard of all of that. But that's why, like, watching this for me, I'm like, why are they making all these pointless changes? Yeah, it's like it worked absolutely fine the way that it was. In fact, it was very tight. I mean, I think very strongly written. And so for them to kind of just like redo it and then just kind of mess around with some stuff, it's like, I don't know, like, why?
What's the point in it?
Yeah.
And I definitely understand some changes, but as far as the changes that happening so much, it seems like you have it there of something that was really successful. Why not just copy that formula for a TV show adaptation for people who aren't going to play the video game like me? I didn't play The Last of Us, and yeah, no, I could definitely see that. I definitely understand where you're coming from. Although, again, I don't think the opening sequence is bad. I think there are some parts towards the end there and even in between that could have been cut to make it a bit tighter, maybe put it around that hour mark instead of the hour and 20. But again, I thought they did a really good job.
So my argument for this is that they've been given 10 episodes for season 1, and they've claimed again that they are going to do the entire game in 10 episodes. That
Right.
sounds like trying to finish the final seasons of Game of Thrones in 6 episodes and tell a crap story. Right? So
Well, I mean, 10 hours.
hold on just a second. So the point is that when you put something into visual media like that, you have the opportunity to take everything that came from the game that was the best parts of the game, the part that drove the characters, created the characters, established who they were, and everything that they did, and put those in your show, and then add other things to it that can either fill in, explain more, or flesh out some of the decisions that people are making. Do some flashbacks, whatever. I don't always like flashbacks, but it's a point. And extend the seasons to go a little bit farther. But you've said, 10 episodes, I'm going to finish the first season, so now I have to make all of these changes to try to be able to limit what I put in there. And all of a sudden, my story is different than the one that millions of people have agreed and watched and said is amazing. It's not like this was just an average video game. This is
right. It's not like it was.
This is considered to be one of the, if not the best cinematic video game ever made.
Yeah. It's not like it was The Cursed Child by J.K. Rowling, where I remember like all the Harry Potter fans hated that book, and it's like, okay, well, if you're going to adapt that, it's fine to, make changes to where she felt at in her writing.
Well, and think about it like this too. So Arcane, for instance, because Zach's mentioned this in the troll room, but he said Arcane is amazing, but doesn't seem much like the game, and obviously that's like to its benefit. And you can add so much. And the guys at I can't remember what the name of the studio is that makes League of Legends, but you can tell that they care about the product that they're making, that they love it, that they love the lore and they love what they're doing. And Zach said, I think I had mentioned this, but he says, I don't think Druckmann was happy with the first game and the story. He showed us that with the second game, which I think is completely true. And it's why I'm just like kind of lost as to what they're planning to do, because like Bella Ramsey's too young to play adult Ellie, so I don't know if they're like, what are they going to do, 2 seasons?
Bella Ramsey's 19.
What? Dude, she looks like she's 13.
Bella Ramsey was born in 2003.
Oh my God.
Oh,
dude, she looks like a child.
Shoot.
And do you think that that's going to change in a year and a half when they film season 2 and it has to jump 5 years?
Yeah. I don't know what they're going to do, man. Like, first of all, I just don't think she really looks like Ellie. Everyone's like, oh, it's great casting. I'm like, I just don't see it. Like, I kind of, it's like they throw the right clothes on her and it's like she's got the knife. I'm like, all right, fair enough. But yeah, I don't, she needs to look older in the second, like if the second game, I mean, despite how I feel about it, like it goes places, man. Like it's not.
Yeah.
Well,
Jenna don't
you were
like her.
talking about Abby. Did you hear? They are, because got renewed
They cast her?
already for season 2. They've already cast her. You know who's playing her, right?
No.
Brie Larson.
No, she's not.
Just kidding.
You're so no way,
Dude, she would have to get like so jacked. Dude, people thought.
I'll let you know who Abby is.
Well, hang on. You gotta understand this. People thought that Abby was trans before the game came out.
Oh, I 100% thought that for the longest time.
And that wasn't the case. There was another character in it that was like. But the thing is like I just don't.
So I guess they'll get the top female action star in the first ever do it to play Abby.
Oh, Jennifer Lawrence. Yeah.
Yeah, they're gonna completely change her character. I think.
I wonder if they're gonna keep that or what? Because I think I remember you talking about it, and apparently from what you were saying, that was and what you've been saying even in this live stream, that was cause for a big uproar. I remember everyone blasting The Last of Us everywhere about whatever change happened in season 2, and but I wonder if Druckmann's gonna just double down on it and everything.
It's why I was wondering if he was gonna change Joel's personality, because that's the key factor. If you rewrite who he is specifically to now fit what you originally retconned in the second game, it's just kind of like, I don't know, man. Like you're bordering on that like George Lucas. I've got to change the original trilogy, like because there were things that I quote unquote wanted different. You know, yeah, there's a lot of it's odd, and I just
do you feel like they've changed Joel's character in this episode? I know it's only one episode to go off of.
A little, yeah.
How so?
Like I was saying before, I don't think that they established that he can be violent, but they established that he's doing it because of Ellie and not because of the world that he lives in. And I think those are very different things.
Yes.
So it's
I get what you're saying.
You see what I'm saying? So
I guess when you think about that ending scene, it can be. I kind of more so took it. Yeah, I guess because she's young and, maybe they're trying to establish his connection with her super fast.
Well,
he made that argument, or maybe he's trying to protect Tess because, Tess was protecting.
Oh, can we talk about that for a second?
And I wonder, yeah, we can. But I wonder if are they protecting Ellie because she's their cargo? You could also make that argument. Well, they don't want to lose their cargo. That's how they get the truck. But he has that flashback.
He has a flashback. Yeah. So they're trying to make it very clear. And again, this is one of my issues with the episode. Is it's just not subtle. You know how like we think back to House of the Dragon, man. Like there's so much in that just doesn't need to be blatantly explained. You don't need to, like, the game didn't need to have flashbacks to let you know that, part of the reason that he's starting to connect with Ellie or he feels a certain way about Ellie is because he's trying to essentially make up for what happened with his own daughter. Like, you just have to let it play out, and that's going to come.
Right.
It's going to be a thing. But let's talk about the Tess thing for a second before we end the Last of Us stuff. In the game, and I don't know, so for Justin, just for clarification, so in the show, Justin, he has a very like outright relationship with Tess. Like they share a bed together. It's very much in the game that is not as obvious.
No.
They almost hint at the fact that their relationship is more out of convenience and because of what the two of them can offer to each other than it is about having like a close relationship with each other.
Right. And there may or may not be romantic stuff in there, but it is never talked about in the game. There's never any kiss, hug, any type of like sideways glance at each other or anything in the game. They exist together, they work together, they are partners, and there's really not anything else hinted at other than that. But you get the feeling like there probably is, even without it being hinted at. Yeah,
there's a couple moments later on in the game that potentially indicate how much he really cares about her. But we'll save that for another one. Zach said Joel's getting moved around by other characters, and he's now a little spoon. Yeah, he's like not. I think I pretty much agree with that. Like I don't know if he is the one sort of making decisions and the actions. It's like everything else is happening around him, and he is now like doing that. Yeah, 'cause she does spoon him in the episode, which I don't know, man. I don't really care, but I was kind of surprised they didn't continue to go down the subtle road. And I think if I was to say like what my major problem is with the episode is that it is just not. They have to be so like blatant with everything, and it gives me the impression that they think people are too stupid to figure these things out.
They've thought that the writers have thought that for a long time in a lot of TV shows.
I do agree with Zach. It did seem like Joel was being moved around by the other characters for the most part, rather than him being the initiator.
Which could or could not be very important for his character later on this season. I'm not going to say anything else, but
okay.
It makes me wonder how they're going to play out a couple of things later on. Because, again, in the game, he's very much established as, like, he is in charge of what he does. No one else really makes decisions for him. He sort of gets stuck in this situation with Ellie. He's not happy about it. But he also knows that if he doesn't get his guns back,
Do you think they projected that onto Tess instead of him?
A little bit.
Much had they dialed it down some for him?
She in certain circumstances is more reminiscent of her character than Joel is of his.
Yeah.
I don't think it's like, again, I don't think it's absolutely egregious. It very much is like, I really don't understand your motivation to change up things that worked perfectly fine. And it's because here's the thing. It's like, if they had gone these other routes, Joseph, you wouldn't be any wiser to it.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so it's like, I think there's something.
Probably still would have liked it just as much.
Yeah.
Or maybe more.
But I think, again, I mentioned this in the Discord earlier today, but like, I'm very biased because I very much for this story. I have a very like soft spot for this story. It's something that like was impactful at the time, and it stood the test of time despite my personal feelings about Neil Druckmann. But again, if Amy Hennig was involved in that first story, that probably plays a lot more into it than his side of the writing. Because there was a lot of drama that happened there. She got ousted. It was not great. That entire situation, and yeah. So, but yeah, I don't know. I'm trying to think if there were any other thoughts that I had about it, but that's mostly it. I mean, we pretty much covered everything as far as that episode is concerned.
The one thing I had been wanting to add is kind of just jump back into the Walking Dead comparison.
Sure.
That you guys were trying to make. The one thing that really set this apart from The Walking Dead, in my opinion, is all the other zombie stuff we've ever had up to this one, and sure, there might be exceptions, but mainstream that I would have seen, it's always been mystical or unexplainable as to why the zombies existed.
Yeah.
Whereas in this one with the cordyceps, it's a scientific thing that actually existed, but they used the like leap to put that onto humans. So there was like some type of like, you're playing this game and you're playing something that this could actually have happened, right? Quote unquote.
Yeah.
Obviously. Mm-hmm. So like that took it to that, but really the game itself was the thematic elements and the relationship between Joel and Ellie. Like that took it way up above anything Walking Dead ever did, because there was never a relationship in that show that had the impact that the two of them had as you went through that game and watched them through the game.
Everybody gets a conscience in Walking Dead and then dies.
Yep.
And exactly. they repeat that cycle. Yeah, it's really...
and then it's like everybody gets a conscience, dies, you get to see how bad people are, and you just hope they get killed off. There's really nothing to Walking Dead that makes it even that special.
Yeah, it just kind of got into that cycle, and they got away from some of what made the graphic novel really good. It's just like, after a while, I was like, I just can't do this anymore. It just it felt like they were spinning their wheels.